Ballast Point Brewing Company originally started out of the back of a home brew store in 1992. By 1996, founder Jack White transitioned from selling brewing equipment to selling beer. Named after Ballast Point in San Diego, the company has won dozens of awards, including 26 by Sculpin IPA. Is it truly worth its place at the top of the crowded IPA market, though? Find out now on Two Dudes Reviews. Named after the Sculpin fish, which is found in both fresh and saltwater locations, the beer is hopped at 5 different stages of the brewing process, giving it a truly unique flavor. While rating as a top 10 American IPA, does it really stand at the top of the IPA world? Let's find out.
Hey guys, we have the Ballast Point Sculpin IPA here. We have it in can form, not bottle. You can get it in either or. But let's just get right into the review and check this thing out. Now, if you haven't seen any of our reviews yet, we do it a little differently. We don't rate the color because, honestly, I've never not drank a beer because the color was weird or different or whatever. So we don't really get into that. But we break it down into different categories to kind of determine how it stacks up against other beers in its particular category, which is why the 6 rateable categories for the beer are smell, taste, value for price, drinkability, distinction, and would I buy it again? So, now that we have it all poured up, let's check out the smell. It has almost a grapefruity IPA aroma. It definitely has that hopped bitterness to it, which you'd expect. It has 70 IBUs, so it's bitter, but not super bitter. Maybe a hint of like a lemongrass in there with the with the grapefruit. And possibly got my nose in there. Possibly a bit of a almost no. I was gonna say a little like a nut ale almost, but I don't think. It's very aromatic. It's very. It definitely has a few different citrus notes in there between the grapefruit. I think the lemongrass. There may be a slight apricot in there a bit, but it definitely has the IPA bitterness. Not super bitter, which I'm enjoying. So I'm gonna recommend it on the smell. I don't like the IPAs just bitter just for bitterness sake. I like it, let's get some more characteristics in it than just bitter. And so I think I'm going to enjoy this, and I enjoy the smell. So, all right, let's get into the taste of the beer. I do get the grapefruit, not heavy grapefruit, maybe almost a grapefruit zest. You don't get a lot of that, but there is a bit of the grapefruit kind of layered over the hopped bitterness. It's like just almost like a slight veil over the hoppiness. And there's also, I almost got like a slight smoky flavor texture to go with that grapefruit flavor. That's really what I'm getting right now. There is some apricot. I feel like after your mouth gets accustomed to the bitterness, it's easier to kind of open up and pick out some of the other flavors. I like that. I like it when it's like a more sophisticated IPA. It's not just let's just make it super bitter and that's it. I like it when there's flavor sophistication and like different notes of flavors. Where the further down you get into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. And so I'm definitely getting like the apricot and maybe a hint of that lemon zest. Lemongrass. I feel like it gets, I don't want to say fruitier the further the further in I get into it, because the bitterness does kind of like completely envelop. I feel like you get it's almost like you're going through just like a sphere of flavor. You have the grapefruit almost smokiness on that, and then you get into the bitterness, the hop bitterness, and then as you move close to the center of that flavor, it's like the apricot and almost a hint of like a hint of mango-y almost. There is a lot of subtle fruitness in that middle thing, but as you swallow it and as you start to go out, you get more of the bitterness at the tail end. So it's like bitter at the front and at the end, but in the middle there's a very interesting like bouquet of subtle fruit to it, but nothing over the top. So it's not like don't think it's a fruit beer by no means. It's just kind of subtle hints here or there of here's your apricot, here's a little mango, here's a little bit of the grapefruit. And so I like that. I think it keeps it very interesting. You can probably just sit down and sip a little bit at a time and get a completely different flavor every single time when you just kind of sit and think about it. And I like that about an IPA. I think a really good, solid IPA should have that kind of characteristic to it. So I'm going to recommend the Sculpin for taste. Now, next is value for price. And I'm trying to think what I paid for this. I got this a while ago. It's kind of been sitting in the fridge, and I decided, let's crack it open. It is a micro brew, but it is a larger microbrewery. It is, I know it's like the second largest microbrewery in Southern California. And I think it's in the top 20 for the United States overall. It's definitely not as large as like Anchor, I don't believe, but it's still large enough to where you can find it pretty much anywhere, and so that definitely assists with the price, which lowers it down than what like a smaller, more localized micro beer is going to cost. And so, although I can't quite remember off the top of my head what it went for, I'm thinking about $2 for a single, and between $7.99 and $8.99 for a 6-pack, I think. But I think for the complexity and just the fantastic flavor of the beer, the price makes it really worth. It's fine because it's gonna be less than a lot of the other microbrew IPAs, and it's going to taste a lot better than most of those too. So I'm gonna recommend it on the value for price. Now, next is distinction. How distinct is it from other IPAs on the market? And the fact that it's not just hoppy, and that they don't just hop it and that's it. I like the sophistication of the different flavors, the different like fruits and everything else that's in it. The further you get into it, I find a lot of the IPAs I get, it's just bitter and nothing else went into it. The IPA, it's more forgiving for flavor purposes because they can just make it super bitter if that's all they're going for, and it can cover up all the other issues they might have had with it because it's just bitter, and if that's what somebody wants, it's just bitter. But this is more than that. There's so many other things going on with this beer, which is what makes it great. And so it is different because of that. There's not a whole lot of like IPAs that are like that just go above and beyond for flavor wise and this interest. And so I'm going to recommend it again on Distinction. And now get to the category 5, which is drinkability, which is basically, can I drink more than 1 or 2 of these at a time? Will I get sick of it? Will I just want to let know? I think this is crisp. It's refreshing. It isn't so bitter to the point where you're going to struggle drinking one and then you just got to go to something else. I like it. It is something that I think I'd have, a couple of. It might not be, I'm just drinking a Sculpin for the entire night and that's it. But I do think I could drink, 2 or 3 of them and be totally content with that. So I will recommend it for that as well. And now the final category is, would I buy it again? And honestly, yes, I would. IPA is not necessarily my go-to beer style. I like to kind of switch it up. So some days I feel like an IPA, some days I feel like a wheat or anything else. I like to, not just stick with one kind of thing. But if I do feel like an IPA, I do feel like something exactly like this. And which is why I really enjoy it. Just, you can tell that there's tinkering with it, where they get to a level where a lot of people might be like, all right, this is good, we're going to cut it off right here and stop. But you can tell that when they were making it, they got to it and they're like, this is good, but I think if we do something a little different, it'll take it to the next level. And they just kept doing that. And that's the sign of a great beer. And that is why I would buy it again. And so, since I recommended it on all 6 categories, the Ballast Point Sculpin IPA does get the Two Dudes official stamp of approval. So that is, I believe, the first IPA we have for the stamp of approval on here. So yeah, it is definitely, go check it out if you haven't tried it yet. Even if you're not a huge IPA fan, I think you'll like just the complexity to it. And even if it's still too bitter for you, I think you can at least appreciate what went into making this thing. And so yeah, that is a beer review. If you've tried it out, if you have a different take on the beer, let me know. Put it in the comments. Love to talk about it. And if you like this kind of review, if you like watching me drink really terrible beers and rant about how bad those beers are, check it out. We have new bad beer section, so follow that. But yeah, subscribe to the station, and if you want more, check out our podcast at Two Dudes in a Six Pack. You can get it at iTunes and Stitcher, wherever else you get your podcasts from. That's all kind of making the best out of the worst situation with beer and pop culture. It's pretty fun little podcast we got going on there. And then hit us up on Twitter at Two Dudes Podcast. And yeah, that's about it. So for me, Grayson, and for the other dude, Chris, take it easy.